Prime Minister commissions well-needed infrastructure and calls on residents to protect what belongs to their community. Developing human capital through special health services.
We pledge our continuing support for your ongoing work program.
And an update from the recent WADA conference. This is Jamaica House Weekly. I am Samantha Allen. Community development was a focal point at a ceremony to commission into service important infrastructure in Rosetown, Kingston this past week. The improved water, sewage and road infrastructure will serve more than 4,500 residents. At Thursday's ceremony, Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller urged residents to build on the spirit of community, as evidenced by the newly constructed library and community center.
Where communities are strong and united, we always have peace, and it's not difficult for development to take place in such a community. Protect your development. It is the responsibility of every citizen of this community to protect everything that is belonging to the community. It is yours.
The $2 million project was completed with funds raised by His Royal Highness the Prince of Wales through a grant from Kuwait. The project was undertaken over the last 7 months, with some 100 persons from the community gaining employment over the period. The main road from Harris Street to Spanish Town Road was paved and water and sewer lines installed. And while Mrs. Simpson Miller was on location in Rosetown, an incident involving a journalist and her close protection officers later prompted the Office of the Prime Minister to issue a statement. In the statement, the OPM said the Prime Minister entertained questions during an impromptu uncleared interview session with the reporter. On answering the journalist's question about the infrastructure development project, the Prime Minister indicated that she wished no further comment on the reinstatement of State Minister Richard Azan. The journalist attempted to continue his questioning, moving toward the Prime Minister as her security personnel began to clear a path for her to inspect the community development project. While reiterating government's full support of press freedom and the right of journalists to ask questions of the Prime Minister, the OPM reminded that it must be done with respect for the office of the Prime Minister. The release stated that after a similar incident earlier this year, guidelines were established for on-location interviews with the Prime Minister, which called for advanced notice and clearance of interviews with the Prime Minister's on-site personnel. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller on Friday pledged the government's continued support for reproductive health with the relaunching of the Hugh Winter Fertility Management Unit at the University of the West Indies. Mrs. Simpson Miller noted that the facility could be used as a viable option in the health tourism sector, adding that the unit has set new standards for Jamaica's public and private organizations.
What we're seeing is a model in effective management and program design, a model in producing problem-solving techniques, and in the development of skilled human capital.
The state-of-the-art facility has telemedicine capabilities with virtual spaces, which means surgeons overseas can participate in procedures here and vice versa. It also allows lecturers and students here to interact with their counterparts overseas. Earlier in the week, Mrs. Simpson Miller showed her support for civil servants who have given more than 25 years of service to Jamaica. The 2013 Civil Servant of the Year is Enthros Campbell, the current production director at the Jamaica Information Service. Ms. Campbell has served the agency for almost 2 decades. Let's renew our commitment to road safety. The call from Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller, who chairs the National Road Safety Council. In her message to mark World Day of Remembrance for road crash victims, Mrs. Simpson Miller said road safety was a national imperative. The November 17 message was read by Attorney General Patrick Atkinson at a church service to mark the day.
I urge all of us to recommit ourselves to the vital goal of road safety. Jamaica must return to a downward trend in road fatalities. We must practice responsible road usage as part of a lifestyle change.
And Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller has accepted the resignation of the Board of Commissioners of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, JADCO. Minister with responsibility for sport, Natalie Nita Headley, made the announcement during a post-WADA conference and WADA report media briefing at Jamaica House on Friday. Mrs. Nita Headley said the board came to the decision in the wake of public perception that there was a conflict of interest among board members.
The commissioners have therefore taken a decision that in the national interest and in order to facilitate the restructuring of JADCO, to tender their resignations, which will take effect on December 31st, 2013.
Mrs. Nita Headley also gave an update on her recent visit to the 4th World Conference on Doping in Sport in South Africa. She said Jamaica echoed its relentless commitment to integrity in sport and as such ratified the new anti-doping rules. Mrs. Nita Headley was however quick to voice Jamaica's support for a strengthening of WADA's program to developing countries. This, she said, included the areas of testing and public education. And that's how we close this week's edition of Jamaica House Weekly. Join us next week when we'll bring you another recap from the office of the Prime Minister.